So we'll wait for some folks to pop into the comments and see what you think. But these are the results of the knack deadlift. So it looks like Trey Mitchell does 10 reps, and it looks like JF Caron does 10 reps. Miraculously, with that injury that he has, he ends up with a split of 9 points between him, Trey Mitchell, and Adam Bishop, who split 9, 9, and 9. So the way that the points usually would go, it would be 10, 9, 8. So when three guys tie, you take the average of those three numbers, which would be 9. So 9 points for Trey Mitchell, 9 for JF. Unfortunately, only enough to get him up to 7th place, but miraculous given the injury we're hearing that he has. And 9 points for Adam Bishop, who I always felt would be at or very near the top of this pack, with Bobby Thompson, who ends up with actually one less rep. And there's been some images floating around on the internet where Bobby passed out again or fell over. I don't know if he passed out, but kind of fell back and resuscitated himself or got back to the bar and still got out 9 reps. So Bobby Thompson's making a real warrior image for himself these days. But again, let's go through all the points. So 9 points to Trey Mitchell, 9 to JF Caron, 9 to Adam Bishop. And then we have 6.5 points to Brian Shaw, 6.5 points to Bobby Thompson. And then we have 4.5 points going to Tom Stoltman, 4.5 points going to Konstantin Janasha. Then we have 3 points going to Athor Melstead. And then we have 2 points going to Luke Stoltman and 1 going to Maxime Boudreau. So the 2 points going to Luke Stoltman seem not to have bothered his position. He's still tied for 3rd, but now tied for Trey, who seems to have leapfrogged Maxime Boudreau here, who Max came in last on the deadlift. So many of us thought that deadlift wasn't really a strength for Maxime. I don't know if I would have had him coming in last, maybe close to it in this crop of guys. And unfortunate, so he's been knocked down to number 5, but still very, very close with Stones coming up. So Max may be able to jump back at least into 4th. We'll see what happens. But with Trey above him, Trey is also exceptional at Stones. So who knows? I don't know how that's all going to work out. But aside from that, the big story here, Brian Shaw has closed the gap once again and is now within 1 point of Tom Stoltman. Before the max log lift and the deadlift, I had said Tom would have to forget how to log lift and deadlift for Brian to be able to make up that amount of gap and win his 5th World's Strongest Man, although I'm rooting for him to do so. It would be awesome if he did. It's not looking like that anymore. It's very close now. So consider this scenario. Brian Shaw is 1 point away from Tom Stoltman. If Brian Shaw finds a way to beat Tom by 1 point in the Atlas Stones, again, I think Tom's the best at Atlas Stones, and barring something going wrong, Tom will beat Brian by 1 point in the Atlas Stones. But if that goes the other way, and they end up in a tie, and the tie is broken by the last event to happen, which is the Atlas Stones, which Brian is winning in that scenario, Brian's got his 5th title. So all he's got to do is suddenly go from the 2nd best stone lifter in the world to the 1st best stone lifter in the world. It's not like saying he's got to go from a mediocre stone lifter to the best, but I don't know. It's not out of the realm of possibility given how strongly people felt Tom would do well and better than Brian in the max log and in the deadlift, and he didn't in either one. So now I'm starting to doubt everything. So who knows? If Brian can beat Tom at Atlas Stones by a point and put himself in an overall tie, I believe that the way it's not a full count back of all events. I believe the way they'd break the tie is the last event, which is the Stones. And if Brian wins the Stones over Tom by a point or more, he wins his 5th title. So it's suddenly become possible and very exciting in a situation that was highly improbable just a few events ago. So World's Strongest Blacksmith is back on, and he says Tom Stoltman, WSM 2021. So he just has to beat Brian at the Stones, and he's got it, but he's made it really, really anxious on himself, so to speak. He's made it a lot tighter than it had to be. Yuki says Stone's going to be a big battle. Agreed, buddy. Agreed. Jess Penrod is back on. The old King of Stones versus the new King of Stones. Couldn't have asked for a better ending. Absolutely could not have. Yuki says Tom and Brian need to give all in the last event. I agree. I also got to say, they got through that deadlift pretty quickly. We were off the air, and they were supposed to be done by, what was it, 11:53 local time, and that's only 14 minutes ago. So I guess they finished right on time or even a bit early. So they are, World's Strongest Man is known for delays, and it looks like, I mean, I'm not there watching it, I don't see footage, but from the pace and the cadence at which these results are coming in, it looks like they're keeping to their timings pretty well, which is really, really great. Jess says, Luke versus Trey Stone off for the podium. Huh, interesting there. It's cool that Luke was still able to stay up where he is, you know, given that not so great deadlift performance with only 2 points. WX Central is back. What happens if Brian and Tom get joint first? Count back to previous event? I believe so. If it's the same as the qualifiers, that is what it will be. From talking with Big Laws, he said that WSM just does it that way. So I don't think they change their rules for the finals and count wins in all the events. I think it would be kind of what happened to Novikov in the qualifiers. You count only the last event. So if Brian wins the stones by a point over Tom, putting them in joint first, Brian, I believe, would win the overall title by virtue of winning that stone event. Let's see. WX Central was all one motion. Wow. Oh, you're talking about Brian's stones in practice. Yep. Hassan Safar says it'll come down to speed on the stones. Brian can beat Tom on transitions between each stone. Possibly. I think Tom's faster on the actual lifts, but who knows? Like, who knows? At this point, who knows? WX says turntable might have cost Brian his title. Yeah, he got 5 points on the turntable, if I remember correctly. Let me look at that. Brian got 5 points on the turntable. So yeah, Tom edged isn't the right word. Tom defeated him by 5 points on the turntable. So that is what made it very hard and for Brian to have to come back and rely on Tom not doing as well on certain events. Glenn Heiner says, what time today are they going to do the stones? So it's up on the screen, but I realize it's a little small, so I'll tell you what it says. They're expecting 2:58 p.m. local time in Sacramento. So depending on where your time zone is, for me, I'm Eastern time, so that would be 5:58 Eastern time. So that's a bit of a gap between events. That's a bit of a gap. So that would be almost 3 hours from now. Steiner B says, thank you for the update. Anytime, buddy, anytime. Happy to jump on here and get everybody up to speed who hasn't been able to keep up with it or just enjoys coming on here and having the back and forth discussion with my wonderful audience who has lots of great insights to share. So thanks for dropping by. If you haven't subscribed yet, buddy, please hit that button. I would really, really appreciate it if you like what you're seeing. Jesse says, beautiful ending. The two best stone lifters in the world, Brian versus Tom, winner wins World's Strongest Man. You couldn't have written it any better, right? You could not have written it any better. Zvanimir says, when are stones starting? So as I mentioned, a little less than 3 hours from now is what it's slated for. So around that time. Yuki says, if Tom needs to win, he needs to keep his head straight. Last two events are not the best for him. What do you think about Tom's mentality? I don't know. Not being there and seeing, I'd have to look into somebody's eyes and see kind of how it looks like they're feeling to make a determination like that. I don't know. And then again, I also don't think I'm the best judge of character either. I thought when Luke and Tom they actually did a video making their predictions before World's Strongest Man started. And Tom seemed really exuberant and like, I'm going to win this and I'm going to win that. And Luke just seemed somber to me. And I thought, is this guy not in the right frame of mind? I really would like to see him do well, but I think he's not in the right frame of mind. And it turns out as you watched him more and more in videos after that and whatever, that's like focus for him. It wasn't like despair. It was, I have a singular focus and I'm going to achieve it. So I wouldn't say I'm the best judge of character on first glance either. Hard to say. Tacky could be an issue. Tacky for sure can be an issue, Mike. You make a very good point there. Travis Ortmeyer mentioned Tacky being an issue, and he's, in at his prime was the greatest stone lifter around. And he mentioned that Siberian Power Show, the Tacky just totally melting off because it was so hot there. So we could have the same sort of situation here. It could be an issue. If it is an issue, though, do you think it's an issue more for one guy versus the other? That's something I'd like to hear about from the audience. Kathleen says she's talk about down to the wire. Yes, down to the wire, except that the other events were a little bit closer together, and now we have to wait a little more. So we'll see what happens. World's Strongest Blacksmith says both Stoltmans on the podium. It's very, very likely. Even if Brian can catch Tom, he's not going to fall below 2. So all Luke has to do is hold on to number 3. That'll be very interesting because all along we've been saying, hey, how cool would it be if both Stoltmans were on the podium? And I don't think anybody, well, many people, I won't say anybody, but I think many people weren't considering that scenario being both Stoltmans on the podium and neither being the winner. So we'll see if something like that comes to pass. Nathan Patch says, can't see Tom losing on the stones. Seeing him live do stones. Good for you. That would be awesome to see live. And watched him in person do stones. No one compares. Tom Stoltman, World's Strongest Man 2021. That's I can't really complain. Like, I don't see him losing either, unless, like I said, unless something goes wrong with the tacky or Brian has an explosion of motivation and Tom doesn't. And I don't know, but Tom right now is the best stone lifter in the world and Brian is the second, right? It just is what it is. So I can't either. But thanks, Nathan. Awesome comment. Please, if you haven't yet, if you like what you're watching, subscribe, Nathan. I really would appreciate that. Zvonimir says, will you still be streaming? I will stream either tonight when it's all over or tomorrow. So I'm not sure yet. Trying to work around Father's Day festivities. I will stream at some point for sure. Tomorrow night, by the way, for any of you who have enjoyed all this, I do a weekly live stream with my co-host, Hunger Smash Fitness. If you haven't checked him out on YouTube, check him out and subscribe there, please. So we're having a couple of guys from Clash on the Coast on our show tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern on my channel. So set your reminders for that. You'll love it. It's going to be Anthony San Lorenzo and finalist Dr. Andrew Mock. So you're going to really love that one. Ryan Bing, what's up, buddy? I know you. This one is going to be close. Tom, Shaw, Luke, and Trey all fighting for the podium at this point. All our Titans on the stones. They sure are. They sure are. Let's not forget about Trey on the stones. And thanks, Ryan, for dropping by, man. I really happy to see you here. It made my day. Glenn says, how many stones are in the stone off for the final, and what are the weights of those stones? Good question. So it's 5 stones, and the weights are starting from 140 kilos up to 210 kilos. So not any of the longer runs that we've seen, maybe like at WUS, where I think, what was that, 8 or 10 stones? I think it was nothing like that. It's 5 stones. Pot of the Hut says, missed everything before now. Just tuning in. Is it all down to the stones now? Pretty much, Pot of the Hut. So basically what happened was on the last 2 events, Tom did not do as well as he might have liked on both the max log lift and the deadlift. And Brian did enough to make up all of the points but one. So Brian was down by 5.5, I believe, before those 2 events, and he is now down by 1 point. So we're postulating a scenario. If Brian can find some way to beat Tom Stoltman at the Atlas Stones by 1 point, he would put himself in a tie, and I believe they would count back to the last event to break the tie, which would be those stones, and Brian would win his 5th title. So in that scenario, he could win. It's just a tall order to beat Tom at stones, a very, very tall order. Jess Penrod says, to answer Yuki's question about Tom's mindset, Tom truly believes there isn't a person in the world that can beat him in stones. I believe he's very confident. I would agree with that as well. Yeah, I mean, there's scenarios out there going on like the heat and all that, but like that's affecting everybody. So I don't think it's necessarily affecting one person more than another. Who know? Well, except Janasha, he did complain about it really bothering him a little bit more during one of the interviews. Mike Hinney says, Brian is more prepared for a tacky issue. He probably has 20 different types with him. Tom's the best with no tacky. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. I've talked to folks who have trained with Brian. My buddy Anthony San Lorenzo is a middleweight pro in the U.S., and he's trained with Brian for quite some time. And he was telling me, like, you wouldn't believe the number of different pieces of equipment Brian has. Like, he tries to hit it from every single angle and be as prepared as he possibly could be. And I would imagine that would flow over to tacky as well. Fanfact says, Tom has the special tacky. Jesse says, Luke has to fight extremely hard to beat Trey at stones to get 3rd place. Anybody would have to fight extremely hard to beat Trey at stones. Luke's stones are good, but Trey is like near the top with stones. Michael B, remember what happened with Poundstone? Shaw could steal it from Stoltman. He could. Like, any of these are possibilities, right? We've been talking about probabilities, but any of these are possibilities. It was highly improbable that Brian would make up these points, and here he is. He's made up almost all of them. So unbelievable. Daniel Monahan, what time are the stones? 2:58 local time in Sacramento. So currently it is 12:17 in Sacramento, so 2:58. A little under 3 hours away. Pot of the Hut, as good as Tom is at stones, will the pressure get to him? Could be worried about blowing the lead. I don't know. Like, that all depends on whether, again, I'm not there watching it. I'm not seeing footage, but that all depends on whether pressure is what caused Tom to not live up to expectations on log and deadlift. And if it is, like, if he's losing confidence, then that could spill over to stones. But I doubt it. Like, he knows he's the best at the world in stones. I don't think there's any doubt in his mind of that, unlike some other events. So I don't see it happening. Nathan Petch. I'm subscribed, buddy. Don't worry. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Pot of the Hut. Also, has JF been an absolute boss by joint winning the deadlift despite a torn hamstring? Yes. I couldn't believe that score when I saw it, because I had kind of conceded that JF was out of it, which he still is probably out of it. But JF is normally a very good stone lifter, but he's not, I don't think, can come near the top now. But yeah. Yeah, doing that well, 10 reps with a torn hamstring is unbelievable. What's happened to Bishop in the finals? He seems to have underperformed. Not on the deadlift, but in some other areas, yeah. Like max log, he only had a point, so he came last there. Let's see, some could say he underperformed a little bit on the Giants medley. He's fast with yoke and fast with loading. The frame maybe gave him a little bit of trouble, but you know, you could say maybe underperformed a little bit on Giants medley. Titans turntable, I think, was a wild card for everybody. It was hard to predict who would do anything there. A lot of people were saying Maxime would do awesome on Titans turntable, and he got 7 points, which is near the top, but that one was hard. Keg toss, folks in this audience told me that Adam was going to be really, really good at keg toss, and he tied with a lot of people for 4 points, so you could call that underperforming. Max log, last place is underperforming no matter how you look at it, huh? But deadlift, he lived up on deadlift, and Adam's stones are pretty good, in my opinion. So let's see how he. Ezref Air just tuned in. Thanks for joining, Ezref. We're having a great discussion here about the high drama that's going on in Sacramento at World's Strongest Man, given Brian Shaw's resurgence as of late to really do everything he can to get that 5th title, and Tom kind of underperforming a little bit on the last 2 events. And Ezra, if you haven't subscribed yet and you like what you're seeing, please hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate that. WX Central says, I wonder if the heat will affect Tom on stones. Brian mentioned he likes the hot and dry heat. That's interesting. The heat would affect me on stones. But yeah, that's very, very interesting. Ezrev says, what happens if Brian wins and Tom gets second? On stones, I believe that would put them in an overall tie and Brian would win the title because they count back. Count back really means all of the events, so I'm using the wrong terminology, but they would look back to the last event, which if Brian had won the stones, he'll win the whole thing. Mike Hinney says, hopefully Luke didn't shave his belly. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. This is taking a turn. If Brian wins in stones, does he win the whole competition? Yes, I believe so. If I'm doing the math correctly, please somebody tell me if I'm off on the math, but I believe so. I believe so. I believe that if he beats Tom by even 1 point on the stones, he wins the whole competition. Pot of the Hut says, the battle for third looks super close. I agree. Is Trey that much faster than the others? I know he's not good historically for reps and weight, but I don't know about him for time. Faster on stones? Is that the question? Trey is great at stones. Trey was second at the Shot Classic at stones, I want to say. I think Trey was in the lead in stones at the Shot Classic till Brian overtook him. So Trey has speed. He's not blazing fast, but yeah. Stone runs are Trey's thing. Glenn Heiner says, heard Tom had an issue with the heat during the log event, lightheaded. I heard that as well. I did. I heard that as well. Do you think the same issue will carry over to the stones? It's hard to say. You know, they did a lot of events indoors last year because of the hurricane. And what do folks in the comments think? Is that the way it should be done? Excuse me, or is being outside in the elements part of the mystique? This is the best and exciting World's Strongest Man after 2017 World Strong. That's the notorious one, right? The Viking Press of Doom. Love you to the point info. Thank you, Genga Deep. I really appreciate that. Thanks for dropping by and letting me know. And I I appreciate that you like all my hard work. If you haven't subscribed yet and you like what you're watching, please do so. And I have a lot of interviews with a lot of these guys as well that you might like to watch as well when you get a chance. Gabe Pena too, who as an alternate didn't make it in, but his interview is great too. Whoop whoop Ryan, says Matthew Germanis. What up, Matthew? Matthew's my new buddy. If you guys haven't checked out Matthew Germanis' new YouTube site, YouTube channel, you definitely should. He's a 16-year-old up-and-coming strongman from South Africa. He's going to be doing some damage in the coming years. Please give this guy a subscribe on my behalf. I really would appreciate it. He's doing some awesome stuff. Matthew Germanis is the name of his channel, so just look him up. And I'll try to throw the link in the description as well. Thanks, Matthew, for dropping by. Martin Ramson, very high drama. I got that phrase, by the way, from, I think it was a old WWE phrase, like, high drama in the garden. No, maybe it was boxing. I think it was boxing. I've been a big boxing and wrestling fan growing up, and it must have been that. I have to look up what fight that was. Some announcer did that. High drama in Madison Square Garden. So kind of stuck with me. I thought it was a cool way to describe it. Good content. I just subbed. Thank you so much, Chris Jess. I really do appreciate that. And spread the word. Let everybody you know come over and do the same. How much is the payout at World's Strongest Man? Great content. Thank you, Steiner, so much for the compliment. I'm not sure what the payout is. That's a good question. I think strongman in general, payouts are not what they should be for what these people go through, guys and girls, in their various competitions. More so the women. There isn't parity from what I've seen, not even close to it. I think the Arnold's payout is higher than World's Strongest Man. I could be wrong, but I don't know what it is this year. I'd have to look it up. I'll try to look that up before we do our kind of end of the whole competition stream, and I'll try to have that answer for you. Danny Chappelle, welcome from UK. Great coverage. Will you be doing a post-contest analysis? Yes, for sure. A few. So I'll be doing one when all of the events are over, either tonight or tomorrow, depending on how the ending of Father's Day goes. I do have kids, and so we'll see how that goes. But yes, I'll be doing that. And then I'll be doing like a few kind of interesting takes, like what do you think the biggest surprise at World's Strongest Man was? So we'll have a few different discussions in addition to just looking at results. So yes, for sure. And thanks for the warm welcome. Jess Penrod says 2 points separating 3rd through 7th place. Yeah, crazy, right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What do you get? Speaking of underperforming, we talked about Bishop. What do you think about Athor Melstead? Has he underperformed? I would say he underperformed on the Giants medley. He did very well on Titans turntable. And then keg toss, I hadn't really seen him do very much. I didn't have an expectation. Max Loglift, I expected a little more out of him. Athor is a good overhead presser. He actually had and I know it's a different implement, but he had a natural stone world record overhead press for a while. So I expected a little more out of his max log. And deadlift, he did pretty well. So what do you guys think of Athor? Do you think Tom is a new World's Strongest Man? I think the odds are still slightly in his favor, yes. Matthew Germanis, what do you think will happen? I don't know. I think if I had to pick, I got to say Tom's going to win. Nothing even counting the last 2 events is telling me Tom's going to suddenly not be the best stone lifter in the world. Brian's going to have to perform even better than his already excellent stones to pull it out. So is it possible? It's a way, way more possible than it was a couple hours ago. But the odds are still slightly in Tom's favor, as they would say in the Hunger Games. Nikog Novikov said on his Instagram, to win World's Strongest Man, it's not enough to be the strongest. There are a lot of underwater stones, aka treacherous barriers one must overcome. He's referring to the organization. Ah, very interesting. Very interesting. I wonder what he's talking about there. Pedro Duarte, the battle for 3rd place will be as insane as the battle for 1st, for sure. This World's Strongest Man this year has given us a lot to be excited about, quite a lot. Martin Ramson. And then we have Tommy N. When does the next event start? So if that's the Tommy N, I think it is. What's up, Tommy? Thanks for dropping by, buddy. The next event starts at 2:58 Pacific time, Sacramento time. So about 5:58 if you're on the East Coast. All right, moving on. Sorry, just checking in on my kid. All right. Martin Ramson said it's the best final ever. Agreed. Then we got Yuki says, Trey versus Luke at Stones opinions. Trey. Luke's Stones are really good, but Trey is near the very top in my opinion. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, but I believe the best stone lifter in the world right now is Tom Stoltman. Second is Brian Shaw, and third is either Trey or Maxime. Luke is probably right under that, like right there. Luke's stones are very good, but I think Trey is slightly above him. But let me know what you think in the comments. Tim Van Ayer says, this will be such a game of psychology as well, I think. Do you think Tom can handle this pressure and Brian has the upper hand because of his experience? Brian has an upper hand over everybody because of his experience always, but Tom has such confidence in his ability with Atlas stones that it's not like they're going up against each other in an event where Tom's unsure of the outcome. Like, I don't want to say max log. Tom knows his max log is good, but he doesn't know that he's the best in the world at it. Like, Tom knows for certain that he's the best in the world at Atlas Stone, so it's a different kind of animal. Experience would come into play if something goes wrong with the tacky for both guys and how they adjust. Then maybe Brian gets an edge, something like that. But, ideal condition for ideal condition, I think Tom takes it. Go Hard Labs is here. What's up, guys? By the way, let me give them a plug. If you guys have never tried Go Hard Labs pre-workout, they make some awesome flavors. No jitters at all. Here you go. Where's my camera? There you go. Bayou Blues is their new flavor, and it tastes incredible. I actually take it sometimes just to do these streams when I'm doing them late at night, and I'm just don't want to get up out of bed, and I'm so tired. It makes you feel your best self with no jitters, and it's just really awesome. So go over to Go Hard Labs. And if you do decide to order their incredible product, use MBSM10 at checkout. It'll get you, it's my code, it'll get you 10% off. So try it out. Their flavors taste awesome. And again, they make you your best self without making you feel like you took something, like without making you feel jittery. They're really awesome pre-workouts. So thanks, Go Hard Labs, for dropping by. I really appreciate it. And you loving my coverage, and thank you so much. Raylo84, you're the most up-to-date channel. Just subscribe. Thank you, Raylo84. It's 3:15 a.m. here in Malaysia. Wow. Won't be waiting for the next event. Hoping Tom Stoltman for the win from Spicy Malaysia. Nice, Raylo. Thank you for the subscription. And tomorrow, when you wake up, check out some of my other content. My interviews are awesome. I think you'll really like them. In addition to all the coverage I've done for World's Strongest Man, I cover strongman and strongwoman from just emerging strongmen like Matthew, who we saw earlier, who's just getting started, all the way up to world level competitors and everybody in between. So I think you'll get a lot out of it, a lot of kind of knowledge of different level strongmen and strongwomen accomplishing lots of different stuff. So I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you for dropping by and subscribing. I really do appreciate that. Isaac Ramirez says, when will we know the results? Good question. I don't know, but they're slated to be done with the Atlas Stones by 3:49 p.m. Pacific time. So if you happen to be on Eastern time, that would be 6:49 p.m. Eastern time. Now, that's when they're slated to finish the event. Then they have to kind of wrap up. I don't know if there's an award ceremony and all that stuff. So the spreadsheet will probably be updated with the results around that time. They've been pretty prompt so far. So, as far as when they're going to announce on their Instagram and whatnot, that may be later. But the spreadsheet should be up to date around that time. So 3:49 or thereabouts Pacific time, 6:49 or thereabouts Eastern time. Hope that helps. Cole H says, events should be outside. It gives the competition a sense of uncertainty, which wouldn't occur if it was inside. Agreed. Every strongman and strongwoman I've talked with, actually, as fans, I know as a fan myself, during World's Strongest Man last year, where Colin Bryce was going through the boneyard in the Facebook backstage, and he said, oh, those anvils over there, that's just part of the kit that we carry around with us everywhere. We're not using them this year. And then he ends up using them in the medley with the yoke. And so as fans, you're like, he led the competitors astray. He said one thing, they couldn't prepare right, blah, blah, blah. But strongmen and strongwomen, by and large, not all of them, but by and large, don't think that way. They embrace the uncertainty. So the point that you're making is something that at least all of the athletes I've spoken with kind of think the same way. That's what they like about strongman above and beyond powerlifting, is the uncertainty and being a well-rounded athlete who can adjust to anything. Cody says weather only matters if you define strongest to include things outside muscle strength. That's very interesting. Interesting take. Fraser Gocher says, what time will we find out the final results in the UK? Depends who you're watching on YouTube. So, and it depends if the best strongman channel around, Big Laws, it depends if he's awake. So yeah, I would be shocked if Laws and Liz go to sleep before the last event's results are out. But yeah, so you should know in the UK when everybody knows, which should be at 3:49 Sacramento time, which would be 6:49 Eastern time, which would be 11:49 p.m. UK time. So, you know, they may run a little long, they may finish a little quickly, but around close to midnight, I would say, UK time. William Fitzgerald says, what happens if they tie? So we talked about that a little earlier. I believe that if they tie, it goes to the last event, which is the Atlas Stones, and Brian would have had to win the Atlas Stones for them to tie, so he would win the title. Martin Ramson says, best final ever, and we cannot see it. Ah, man. I know. We have to wait. Oh, and sorry, I forget if it's Martin or Martine. So my apologies if I got it wrong. But yeah, it depends on where you are. If you're in the US, you get to see it in early July. If you're in the UK, you don't get to see it until December 26th, from what I hear, which is crazy. I don't know why they don't just make it equal. If you have the production done in time to show to the US, why isn't it available for everybody else? Like, what's the big deal? I don't get it. Moser 920, zero desire to see Shaw win it again. Go Tom and Luke. Fair enough. I would like to see him win it again, but they're all fair opinions. Tom's going to win it at some point, even if it's not this point. He has too much potential. And Luke is showing himself to be very, very formidable, too. I mean, you know, he may get one, at least one before he's done as well. WX Central found out for us. Payout is $75K this year. I was going to guess 50, so thanks for getting the real number. And Rocket Man ZZ confirms $75K. It'd be interesting to know what the other payouts are. Like 10th place is probably something embarrassingly low. And I'm not cracking on World's Strongest Man. It's a strongman thing in general. So that's why a lot of them are, you know, try to align with sponsorships and that sort of thing. Or like in the case of Robert Oberst, do like other media type stuff to get your name out there. It's just the purses themselves are not enough in most cases. As Frappel says, when are the Stone results on? Stone results should be around 3:49 Pacific time, Sacramento time. So depending on which time zone you're in. Patrick says, even if he doesn't win this year, prove Shaw is still one of the best and can still win. I agree with that. Because a lot of people last year when he came fifth were writing him off. A lot of people were writing him off before he came in fifth last year. So then, incredible performance at the Shaw Classic. Some people said he had advantages there. I didn't really buy into that. And then he comes here and does this. So I think that argument is kind of gone. Even if he comes in second, like he's still among the best in the world. And that kind of longevity is really something to behold for sure. There's not a lot of guys that are, you got Big Z, but there's not a lot of other guys that are at, you know, kind of that level of longevity. And sorry, I have a lot of comments here. Kind of lost my place. Wow. Sorry, my screen didn't advance and I didn't notice that there were lots and lots more. Here we go. Antoine says, wow, JF with 10 reps, he's a warrior, really trusting him for winning next year. I do too. I thought he had a really good chance this year. JF and I spoke a couple of times and I really felt like he was well prepared this year. Go check out my interview with him if you haven't yet. There's one that was a full career interview and one that was shorter where we talked about predictions with each other. And he had just finished working out and he was eating. And like a few people in my comments were like, wow, like he ate as much rice that there's none left in the country. Or like, I don't know, some funny comments like that. Yuki says, boys, let's help my block strongest man to get to 900 subs. He only needs 20. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Yuki. Thank you very much. He's going to be my new head of marketing, Yuki. Robert Fletcher, what time is Stone? Stone starts at 2:58 Pacific time. So right now it is 12:37 Pacific time. So about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Tommy Jacobs, deadlift happened already. Yes, it did. Deadlift happened already. Results are on the screen, Tommy. If they're too small for you to read, I can read them out to you. So deadlift was Trey Mitchell with 9 points. JF Caron, shockingly, with his injury, still tied for 9 points. And Adam Bishop also tied for 9 points. Then you had Brian Shaw at 6.5, splitting with Bobby Thompson at 6.5. Then you had Tom Stoltman at 4.5, splitting with Konstantin Janasha at 4.5. Then you had Athor Melstead with 3 points. Then you had Luke Stoltman with 2 points. And then Maxime Boudreau with 1 point. So those were the deadlift results. And that is the second of 2 places where Brian Shaw made up more points against Tom Stoltman and why he's only a point away now. Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory. What's up, man? Come on, Brian. Please get the 5th. You know that was a joke. Awesome. And Sheldon, if you like my joke, please subscribe. All glory be his forever. What time is the Stones? As mentioned, it starts at 2:58 and it's supposed to go to 3:49. Those are Pacific times. Pot of the Hut says, reckon Bobby's in with a shot at the Arnolds. His deadlift and log are super solid. Seems like he falls down unmoving. Agreed. And Stones, which is moving also. Yep. Yeah, Bobby has a foot mobility issue. I don't know if you're aware. So stuff like truck pulls are hard for him. Anything where you need foot flexing could give him some trouble. But and Stones, he's notoriously still improving at. Like he's kind of a lower tiered stone lifter for now. We have some people like Steven rooting for Tom, Winston Smith. Tom would have to underperform for Brian to win. Agreed. And I think he did underperform on the max log and the deadlift. I thought he was going to beat Brian in both of those. So we'll see. But again, Stones is a different beast. Stones is Tom's thing. Like nobody would say max log lift and deadlift are things that Tom is the best in the world at. Stones is a different story. So we'll see. I agree with you. He'd have to underperform on Stones for Brian to get it. Joseph McEwen says Tom's getting it. Mr. Jimbo, Tom Stoltman. I'm going to say, yeah, it has a number 1 on it. So that's a gold, not a bronze. Yes. Rule 73, am I safe to assume that Tom and Brian will run the Stones at the same time? I don't know. So I don't know how that works. Probably. It's a World's Strongest Man is a TV show after all. And so, to really create the drama, I would think that if they they really want to get people excited, they would do that. There's also probably a points reason to do that. But yeah, I think so. Nasser Mansour says Shaw takes it. Kenneth Schultz says, what happens if they tie? So we talked about that. If they tie, I believe Brian wins the title because they look back at the last event, which is the Atlas Stones. Robbie Shield says, last year, Tom beat Brian by almost 10 seconds, despite Brian coming in second in the event. So on that evidence, Tom must be the strong favorite. I agree that Tom's the strong favorite. Like I said, something would have to go wrong for Tom to not win the Stones. Kathleen says, where in the East Coast? I am Washington State. I'm in New Jersey. My buddy Hunger Smash Fitness is in Washington State, so you should give him a shout. Maybe you'll talk about apples or something. Sorry, I'm not actually that ignorant. I'm joking. Winston Smith. Luke has been impressive too. Tough training partners, for sure. Jamie Murphy says, let's go, Brian. Joseph McEwen. Brian has to hope that Tom slips up. He does. I don't think Brian hopes for that, though. Like, I don't think that's the way he looks at it. Brian's approach is, I'm going to do the best I can because I've prepared like crazy for this, and whatever happens with the other guy happens with the other guy. Big Loz is like that too. If you haven't seen my interview with Big Loz, a lot of you have seen he and I go through predictions where he like kind of adjusted a lot of what I had predicted, but I don't know if you've seen me actually do my career interview of his career. He talks about that, where he just very quickly in his career came to the realization of what the other guy's doing is meaningless to me. Like if I do my best, I can't control the other guy. And so go check out that interview if you want to see him talk some more about that topic. It's very interesting. Cloud Strife. Hey, Cloud Strife. What's up? If you're here for the first time, Cloud Strife, please subscribe. And that goes for everyone else as well. If you like what you're watching, you enjoy the back and forth with this awesome audience and all of our insights, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me quite a lot. And like the stream as well. Jeffrey Cully says, best final ever. Wouldn't have had Novikov in that group and wouldn't have used a front hold as the final event. I think a lot of people would agree with you on the front hold. Brian, for example, said like front hold, that's not a measure of strength. And I would agree. It's more a measure of endurance. Tom has one motion to 200 kilogram stone easily. I would not be surprised by that, for sure. Tony M says, Luke is definitely better at stones than Trey and Maxime. Okay. We'll see. Luke is really good with stones. Maxime's made incredible improvements over the last year, and we'll see. Those three guys are very close to each other. I think Luke is a really, really good stone lifter, slightly below the other two guys, but who knows? I don't know everything. I don't know a lot of things. Enrique Ribeiro, Tom versus Brian. Tom wins. All right, we'll see. Thanks for coming by, Enrique. Frederick Pitre. Tom is the best stone lifter. Yeah, many people would agree with that. I think he has the record, right? So you have to. That's what they would call a true fact, as opposed to a false fact. I'm British, so I'm rooting for Tom, but I have followed Brian for years, and I'm a massive fan. I'm from the U.S., and I'm a massive fan of Luke, so there you go. Big up, Eddie Hall. Anthony Von Spreckelson. Hey, mate. Hey, mate to you, Anthony. Thanks for dropping by. Anthony, if you like what you're watching, please hit that subscribe button. I really would appreciate that. And watch a bunch of my other great content while you're here. Thanks for dropping by, Anthony. I love how Brits and people from Australia say mate. Like people in the U.S. here, we don't have nice flowery language. Like our language sounds plain sometimes. I love speaking to people from other parts of the world. Johnny Bravo, who wins if Brian wins the stones? Brian, I believe. Again, no one has told me my math is wrong, so I'm going to go with Brian. Nick Gogg says, do you think Novikov was put in a tough group with inconvenient events on purpose to get him out of the competition? No. So Tom has more chances to win because he's a Brit and it'll look good on Brit TV? No. I don't think anything happened on purpose to Novikov. In fact, one could argue that turnaround backwards thing he did with the frame, first of all, the turning around backwards and using different muscle groups, and second of all, dragging it a bit, one could argue he should have been last instead of second to last on that one. So I don't think anything was done on purpose to him at all. He did really well in a deadlift last year, and there's a deadlift in the final this year. It's supposed to be a 9-inch this time, not the 18 that he did last year. But no, I don't think anything was done purposely to Novikov. In fact, when the groups first came out and everyone was saying Group 5 is the hardest group, I think what they meant is hard for everybody else because of Novikov, like not the other way around. Donkey says, come on, Tom, for Scotland. Anybody who's never visited Scotland, when the world situation kind of opens up a little bit more, you should. Edinburgh is awesome. I mentioned this on a previous stream. I went years ago with my wife, and it's like you have the main city, then a walking bridge across, and then you get to a hill that brings you up to a castle. It's just beautiful. Google Edinburgh and look at the images. It's beautiful. Graham F says, if it's a tie, what is the count back this year? Unless they've changed it, I believe it's whoever wins the last event, whoever wins the stones. Jamie Murphy says, Brian deserves this win 100%. He has trained so hard. He has trained so hard for it. He has, for sure. Absolutely. Anthony says, good thinking, Nick. Tony M says, Tom, Brian, Luke. Earlier today when I had my stream, that's what I said as well. So we'll see. I would love either Luke or Maxime. Okay, Pot of the Hut. Hard to say, I know, because of injuries and lack of performance, but where would Lisi's be if he were thrown in the finals? That's a good question. He feels like he would be in a very good position, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, Martins doesn't hold back. Have you been watching the Facebook backstage? Like, there's certain events where he says, throw me in there. I can beat all of these guys. I think it was an overhead medley. He says, I can beat all of these guys at overhead medley. So if you were to listen to him, you would be doing pretty well. So we'll see. Martins has had some really rotten luck, like being hit with the car and then the appendicitis thing. It's like he's really had some rotten luck. I hope he's back next year and fully recovered and at the peak of his powers. It would be awesome to see him. Sorry, just waking up here in Australia. How was Tom so bad and Max luck? Not bad, but bad enough, and Brian was good enough to make up points. Folks are saying that Tom might have had an issue with dizziness on the log, so that might have had something to do with it. And folks were also saying yesterday that Tom might have suffered an elbow injury, but apparently it's not confirmed. So I don't want to say for sure, but those are the possibilities. And if Brian just did one more rep on deadlift, would he be safe from Tom in stones? If Brian did one weight higher in max log, he'd be in a way better position for sure. Rogue Highlander says the events were built for Brian Shaw to win. Okay. I'll say that when I interviewed JF Caron, he said these events are very well suited to Brian and not suited to Novikov. And I'll leave it at that. JF is way more experienced and knows 1,000 times more than I do about strongman. So take his opinion, not mine. Cloudstrife says the winner is the one who deserves to win. It's as simple as that. Agreed. Brian deserving of this win, worked too hard for it, says Steve Wilson. Well, we have lots of comments coming in. I want to wrap this up so you guys can all kind of go get a rest, get some food, what have you, before we have more results later on. Scotland. Shaw strength, 19.84 seconds. Oh, you're going to predict the exact to the 100th of a second. All right, Giovanni. Giovanni, are you in the U.S. or are you in Italy? Joseph McEwen says, Brian's hoping Tom messes up and Luke is hoping that Brian messes up. Oh, my. I love the Stoltman brothers, but I want Brian to get the 5th. It would be really cool if Brian got the 5th. It really would. Another Brian Smockjer. I like that Eddie did the turntable for fun and put up a 47-second time. Yeah. We'll have another discussion one of these days about the Eddie Thor boxing match and see what you all think about that. Joseph McEwen says, Tom will make strongman history. Joey Sachs, thank you, dude. Really appreciate your hard work. I appreciate you too, Joey. Thanks for dropping by. I really do appreciate that. It's amazing that I come on here with some information to share, and so many wonderful people are jumping on to share your insights. It really is awesome. First Scott to win the title, says Joseph McEwen. Steve Wilson, thank you for your content. You're welcome, Steve. Steve, if you haven't yet, if you've forgotten to, can you please hit that subscribe button and check out some of my other content, like some of the athlete interviews? I really would appreciate that. That would be awesome of you. All right. Cloud Strife, Martins Lises will be back and stronger than ever. Agreed. Brian will win. More experience. Tom will make a mistake, says Anthony. We'll see. It depends if they get in a situation where experience matters. If Brian and Tom tie, do they break the tie by who did better on the deadlift for reps? I think it's who did better on the stones, unless something's been announced that I'm unaware of, Kenneth. So I think it's the last event. Do they all not work hard, not just one guy? They do. I think people mean Brian's worked harder than Brian has worked in the past, not compared to other people. At least that's how I would say it. BTS showed he was pushing while they were using the motor to turn it. Okay, interesting. Is Tom injured? It's not confirmed. Some people have said he had an elbow injury, but it has not been confirmed. How possible is it for Luke to podium? Very possible. Short answer, very possible. Russian Soldier, welcome. I don't think Luke is better than Trey by stats looking at past stones, but he has improved physically and has better mental state than Trey. I don't think Trey is lacking in mental state. I wonder where you would have that idea. But yeah, they're both great stone lifters, and thanks for dropping by, Russian Soldier. Appreciate it. Tom holds many stone records. I don't think he'll mess up. Many people agree with you. Kathleen says, oh, you were answering somebody about something, so I'm not sure what that one was about. Nighthawk Medic. I love Brian, but I'm afraid he is toast. Fair enough. Stuart McKinnon says, yeah, I think Trey will beat Luke, but hopefully not. I like Trey, too. It would be cool to see him do well. Trey won Texas Strongest Man, so he's been having a heck of a year. Unbelievable year for Trey. How much more time for India? What time is it in India right now? I think India is 9.5 hours ahead of Eastern time, if I'm correct. So right now in India, is it like 1:21 a.m., more or less, right now? So if that's right, then the stones should be done in 3 hours. So 4:20, around 4:20 a.m. Cloudstrife says, Tom picks up stones like I pick up an apple. Yeah, me too. Me too. Age is always a factor when it comes to stones. Fair enough. NLN Max Peltier says, look, I'm new to the sport. I know a little, but is it still a good chance Brian Shaw to win? It's a better chance that Tom will win, but Brian has a chance. Brian has to win the Atlas Stone, Well, he has to do better than Tom at the Atlas Stones, but I don't think anyone else is going to beat either one of them. So Brian would have to beat Tom by a point to win. He's put himself in a great position with his performance in the max log and the deadlift, and Tom kind of falling a little short on those two. Kent Altina says, it's been 5-stone medley benefits Brian more than Tom. If it was a 10-stone medley, no one could ever catch Tom. 5 stones is a single misload is catastrophic. Totally agree with that. All right, I'm going to wrap this up soon, so thanks all for joining. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything big. I have lots more comments here. Brian has to... I shouldn't have put that one on the screen. Shaw has worked hard, but so has Tom and Luke, so you can't say that he deserves the win. They all work hard, for sure. They all work hard. Nathan Perch, UK time is 21:59 to 22:59. Okay. Scotland has their fingers and toes crossed for you, Tom. Joseph says Tom's winning. Let's see if I missed anything. Tim Van Ayer, lots of people are saying this is B's last chance if Mateus and Martins come back next year. Do you agree? Last chance to win World's Strongest Man, it's probably his last chance. Just because not so much because of the other guys, but because this is the best Brian's looked in a long time. And if this version of Brian can't win it, I don't know if he could be even better than this. So that's kind of my opinion. Mateus may have to work his way back a little bit. Both guys are coming back from injury, so who knows how long it'll take them to come back. They may not be at their very best right away at their first competition. You know, Janasha wasn't, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think yes, but not for the reason you mentioned. What time are the stones starting? 2:58 Pacific time. STA Duper NASCAR fan, up NASCAR fan. Sorry, just tuned in. What's the tiebreaker if it comes down to that? As far as I'm aware, unless they've changed the rules, it's the last event, which is the Atlas Stones. Adam Lowe says, when is the final event? Starts at 2:58 Pacific time. So I think we're getting a little bit of repetition for folks that are just chopping in. So I'm going to wrap it up now. Thanks, everybody, again, for joining me on my blog, Strongest Man. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button. If you're new here and haven't had a chance to do so yet, please like this stream. I really do appreciate it. And until the contest is over and we get back together either tonight or tomorrow because of Father's Day, as always, ciao, homie.